The White House announced a blockade. Within hours, the Pentagon rewrote it. Not the headlines, not the talking points, the actual order, what it said to do and what it didn't. The difference was surgical. The difference was everything. Wars don't end in situation rooms. They end in the margins, in the edit that nobody notices until it's too late, in the choice between two words that sound the same but mean everything different. The White House wanted the Strait of Hormuz closed, all of it, every ship, every flag, total choke point. That's what they said. That's what the media ran with. But the US military, CENTCOM, looked at that order and did something quiet. It narrowed the scope. It changed the geography. It preserved something the White House never even mentioned. And the question isn't why they did it. The question is, why didn't the White House stop them? For 39 days, the war had been economic bloodletting. Iran closed the strait on February 28, not partially, completely. Mined it with modern devices, attacked every merchant vessel that moved through the corridor. 22 ships hit in weeks. Tanker insurance doubled, then tripled. Oil moved from $89 a barrel to over $100. Brent crude hit 104. Gasoline at the pump climbed to $4.12. The global economy wasn't panicking yet, but it was watching, waiting for the next move. The math was simple and brutal. $493 billion moves through the strait every single day. Every day. That's the daily throughput of the world's commerce flowing through 34 kilometers of water. More than oil. LNG shipments for heating, for power, for survival in Europe. Refined goods, critical electronics. Everything that keeps the supply lines moving between Asia and the West runs through that narrow passage. China knew it. India knew it. Russia was already smiling. The White House understood. Whoever controlled the strait controlled the next phase of the war. Iran had already moved first. They'd shot it, they'd mined it, they'd announced it on their own terms, not a military operation, but what they called maritime protection, a blockade of their own making. The international response was divided. The UK wasn't committed. The coalition was fractious. 40 nations that had signed up for maintaining freedom of navigation were now calculating the cost of actually enforcing it. Every leader faced the same equation. How much does this cost my economy versus how much does this cost my military? The White House wanted to answer that equation with maximum leverage. Close the strait entirely. Not just Iranian ports, the entire waterway, every ship, every flag, every trader and merchant and neutral vessel. Total closure. Make the pressure unbearable. Make Iran fold. Make them reverse the closure and accept whatever terms came next. It was a doctrine older than the nation itself. Control the choke point, and you control everything that flows through it. So they tried something else first. They tried talking. 21 hours in Islamabad, April 11 to April 12. The highest level US-Iran meeting since 1979. Not a press conference, not a diplomatic note. A full delegation, 300 Americans, 70 Iranians. Pakistan sitting in the middle, trying to translate between two countries that hadn't had a conversation at this level in nearly 50 years. The stakes were obvious. The gap was immediate. The US wanted enrichment, complete halt to uranium enrichment, centrifuges offline, full inspections, verification by international monitors, no ambiguity, no side deals, no margin for interpretation. The Americans knew Iran had been enriching beyond the original limits for years. They wanted that stopped. They wanted proof it was stopped. They wanted it verifiable, or the war continued. Iran wanted something different. They wanted the Strait back. They wanted access. They wanted to resume their own shipping without interference. They wanted sanctions relief, the economic pressure removed or at least reduced. They wanted the $6 billion in frozen assets unfrozen and returned. They wanted recognition that they'd been wronged. They wanted what every power in decline wants: acknowledgement that they're still relevant, still capable of making the bigger players negotiate. The talks went in circles, 21 hours of secular motion. Translators working shifts, meals sent in, diplomatic notes passed in side rooms. The Americans said no to sanctions relief without full compliance on enrichment. The Iranians said no to enrichment compliance without sanctions relief first. Who moves first? Who blinks first? The gap stayed exactly where it started. 21 hours and the gap was unchanged. By the time talks collapsed on April 12th, the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Iran's most powerful military faction, issued what they called warnings. Not statements, not rhetoric, warnings. They said there would be a severe response, an immediate response, within hours. The warning wasn't directed at the negotiators. It was directed at the White House. It was directed at the military commanders deciding what came next. The White House heard the warning. The White House understood. No more talking. No more circular diplomatic motion. Time to move to the next tool in the arsenal. Time to make Iran feel actual economic pain. Time for the blockade. At 10 a.m. Eastern Time on April 13th, the order came down. A single line, a fragment really. Quote, all maritime traffic entering and exiting Iranian ports. That's it. That's the entire scope of what was ordered. Not the Strait, not every ship, not every flag. Iranian ports. The order was laser-focused. The order was precise. It was everything the White House needed to announce maximum leverage. It was also something else, something quieter, something the Pentagon was already preparing to change. Here's what the White House probably meant when they said that. They meant close the Strait, choke off Iran completely, strangle their economy, make every day without trading create more pressure. Standard coercion, standard wartime economics. It's the doctrine every naval power has used since navies existed. Control the waterway and you control the region. Control the region and you control who negotiates and on what terms. The Strait was the target. The Strait was the weapon. The Strait was the source of leverage. But there is a category of difference between what you announce and what you actually order. There is a difference between political messaging and military reality. And there is a difference between two kinds of blockade that sound almost identical until you understand what comes after. A strait blockade is an act of war against every nation, every flag state, every merchant marine, every ally, every neutral. It's a declaration that says the United States is closing an international waterway to all traffic, to everyone, full stop. That's what strait closure means. That's what it signals to the rest of the world. It says the US is done with international norms. It says the US is willing to harm allies and neutrals in order to pressure one enemy. It says the US is taking on the entire world, China, India, Europe, everyone moving oil, everyone moving goods, everyone using that passage. The UK understood it. The coalition understood it. 40 plus nations understood what a full strait blockade meant. It meant the US was crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. It meant the order of international commerce was over. A port blockade is different. A port blockade is surgical. It says we are targeting one country's ability to trade. We are blocking Iranian ports. We are stopping Iranian shipping. But we are not stopping everyone else. Not the Indian ships moving their oil. Not the Chinese vessels carrying goods. Not the European tankers. We're saying to the world, other traffic can move. Other commerce continues. Other flag states aren't blocked. Other nations aren't part of this conflict. We're not challenging the entire international system. We're exerting pressure on one actor. It's coercion. It's economic warfare, but it's narrower. It's more defensible. It's less likely to turn every neutral into an enemy. Within hours of the announcement, CENTCOM did what it always does when political leadership asks for something that breaks the international architecture. CENTCOM rewrote what the order actually said. Not openly, not with a press release, not with a memo or a clarification, no formal rewrite, just a quiet narrowing of the scope. From strait to ports, from every ship to Iranian traffic only, from an act of war against everyone to targeted pressure on one nation. The Pentagon changed the actual operational directive while the political leadership was still talking about the broader version to the press. The White House could have objected. They didn't. That's the part nobody discusses in the analysis. The military branch essentially said to the political branch, we're going to execute the narrower version of what you asked for. We're going to blockade Iranian ports, not the entire strait. We're going to preserve freedom of navigation for everyone else. We're going to do this without your explicit approval. We're going to do this because we believe it's the right call. And the political branch accepted it. The White House accepted it. They didn't push back. They didn't demand the full strait closure they'd apparently wanted. They didn't make CENTCOM walk it back. You can call that checks and balances. You can call that the system working. From an act of war against everyone to targeted pressure on one nation, the Pentagon changed the actual operational directive while the political leadership was still talking about the broader version to the press. The White House could have objected. They didn't. That's the part nobody discusses in the analysis. The military branch essentially said to the political branch, we are going to execute the narrower version of what you asked for. We are going to blockade Iranian ports, not the entire strait. We are going to preserve freedom of navigation for everyone else. We are going to do this without your explicit approval. We are going to do this because we believe it's the right call. And the political branch accepted it. The White House accepted it. They didn't push back. They didn't demand the full Strait closure they'd apparently wanted. They didn't make CENTCOM walk it back. You can call that checks and balances. You can call that the system working. That's what a quiet rewrite looks like. That's how power operates when the cameras are off. But there's a second part to this, a detail nobody mentions in the reporting, a fact that changes the entire calculus of what comes next. Iran laid mines in the Strait months ago. Not a few, hundreds. Modern anti-ship mines, smart mines, hard to detect, difficult to clear. The Iranians scattered them methodically, creating a barrier that was real and persistent. When CENTCOM started planning the narrower blockade, they understood the mines were a problem, not just for American ships, for Iranian ships, for any ship that wanted to move through that water. The US sent 2 destroyers through on April 11th, specifically for mine-clearing operations. Skilled crews, specialized equipment. They swept the Strait. They found some mines. They cleared the ones they could detect. They got a lot. They didn't get all of them. They didn't find everything. Here's the part that matters. Iran has apparently lost track of some of its own mines. Not all of them. Some. The Iranians laid them months ago. They documented the locations at the time. But with the war, with the chaos, with the changes in command and communication, the Iranians don't actually know exactly where all of their own mines are anymore. That's not speculation. That's the assessment of US intelligence. Iran has lost control of the map, which means something nobody is talking about. Iran can't fully reopen the Strait even if it wanted to. Even if Iran capitulated. Even if Iran said yes to every American demand and agreed to reverse the closure and remove the blockade. Even if the war stopped tomorrow. The choke point is now self-locking. The mechanism is broken in both directions. Iran can't safely open it because they don't know where all the mines are. The Iranians can't guarantee safe passage for their own ships. They can't guarantee anything. They're trapped by their own weapons. That's not something you announce publicly. That's not something you broadcast. That's not something you put in a press briefing. That's something you know. That's something you keep quiet. That's something you trade on in the next round of negotiation. You know Iran can't fully reopen the waterway. You know the leverage is even more in your favor than it looks. You know the Iranians know you know. You know they're stuck. And you don't say it out loud. You let them figure it out slowly. You let it dawn on them that they've trapped themselves. That's a different kind of pressure. That's the kind that works over time. The bigger story is the quiet edit. The bigger story is how power actually operates when the cameras are off. It's not in the announcement. It's not in what the headline said. It's in what the announcement didn't say. It's in the scope that got narrower in the hours after the order came down. It's in the order that got rewritten without being called a rewrite. It's in the moment when one institution overruled another institution's apparent directive and the second institution accepted it without making a fuss. That's where the real architecture of power lives. That's where the actual decision gets made. That's where strategy happens. You don't learn about it from the headlines. You learn about it by watching what doesn't happen after the announcement. You learn about it by noticing what was said and then comparing it to what actually got ordered. You learn about it by understanding that Iran can't reverse its own minds. The difference between those things, that gap, that silence, that invisible narrowing, that's where the real strategy lives. That's the entire point of this. The biggest moves leave no trail. The biggest decisions get made in the margins. The general who rewrites the order without calling it a rewrite is the one nobody sees. The general who understands that his enemy has trapped himself in his own trap. And that is exactly how it's designed to be.